Hello and welcome back to episode 80 of the Engage 8 podcast. I am Josh with my co-host Mike. We are recording on Tuesday, September 24th. We have a ton to get to today, so we'll get right into it. We're going to start with some college football. Then we're going to recapping the past week in college football, I should say. Then we are going to recap the games we did not discuss on our week 3 NFL recap. If your team did not play on Sunday night or Monday night, you can check out those recaps there. But today we will be talking about Sunday Night Football and the two Monday Night Football games from week 3 of the NFL. And then we are going to finish the pod previewing you for week 4 of the NFL and giving some of our best bets for the week. But we will start with recapping week 4 of college football. Mike, do you want to get us started?
Yes, I can get us started. A lot of big games this week. I'll start with the one on Friday night. Illinois versus Nebraska. In Nebraska, the environment was pretty crazy. Nebraska hasn't been very good in a while, and they seem to be pretty good this year, ranked for the first time since maybe the 90s or early 2000s. It's been a long time. They have a chance to get a win against a ranked opponent, number 22 versus 24 against Illinois, but Illinois is able to outlast them in overtime. Was a very good game. Dylan Raiola played pretty well, almost had 300 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, and a pick. They couldn't really run the ball. Was a very entertaining game to watch overall. Uh, Illinois passing attack with Luke Altmaier, he was phenomenal, 4 touchdowns and no picks. They were able to run the ball pretty good against the Nebraska defense, 168 yards rushing. But overall, the game goes to overtime, and Illinois is able to get it done in overtime. Nebraska, I think, had like a fourth and about 40 to get it done, but they were obviously not going to get that done. Illinois gets a win against number 22 Nebraska, and classic Nebraska fashion, they blow the game late. So unfortunate for them, but they're still a very good football team and are going to continue to be very good. Next game here, BYU and Kansas State. We've been talking about Kansas State a lot recently. They've been very good with Avery Johnson. They struggled mightily in this game against BYU. BYU played very good, wins 38-9 against number 13 Kansas State. Avery Johnson could not pass the ball in this game, really, only 130 yards, had 2 picks. Really also couldn't get it going on. They could get it going on the ground, but that was about it. They had 228 rushing yards and only 9 points. You really never see that. Meanwhile, BYU, 149 yards passing and 92 yards rushing, and they absolutely dominate this game. Kansas State looked very good going into this game. The fans were very confident as well. I think there was something going on with burritos in this game. I don't want to get into too many specifics with that one, but Kansas State, very disappointing game after looking very good early in the season. Next game, USC versus Michigan. The first time we see Big Ten teams play, and for USC, they got introduced to Big Ten football, especially Big Ten regular season football in this one. Alex Orji steps in as Michigan's new quarterback and finishes with a astounding 32 passing yards in this game. He really didn't have to pass. They did a ton of runs. Donovan Edwards, not even the main ball carrier. Kalel Munnings was the main carrier, 159 yards and 2 touchdowns for him. Donovan Edwards has 14 for 74, and overall, Michigan has 290 yards on the ground on 46 carries. That's Big Ten football. Meanwhile, USC has 52 pass attempts with Miller Moss, 283 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a pick for him. But USC had the lead late. Michigan gets the ball and continues, doesn't stress. They run down the field. They get a touchdown with, I think Mullings got the touchdown to end the game, and Michigan wins a game where I wasn't shocked they won, but I was kind of surprised the game was in the big house in Michigan, but they really just established the run game, played Big Ten football, and these USC teams aren't used to teams running like that. And Michigan gets it done. And final game I'll talk about here first, Tennessee and Oklahoma. Like how the last game was one of the newer Big Ten games, this is a new SEC game here. Jackson Arnold was not good in this game at all, 7 for 16, 54 yards. Meanwhile, Nico, he played pretty well, 194 yards and a touchdown. Tennessee continues to run the ball very well, 151 yards rushing, and overall their defense was able to get it done for them. They had Jackson Arnold seeing ghosts. Oklahoma could not run the football, only 36 rushing yards, and Tennessee's defense and running game allowed them to win this game, and they're looking very good to start the season. A lot of big wins, and this is a win against a very good team, but overall they're looking like a contender.
Yeah, Tennessee has looked great to start the year. That's a big win at Oklahoma. Oklahoma's welcome to the SEC moment, kind of. Nico looked great. Like you said, Arnold did not the entire game. A couple of the other games you mentioned that I wanted to talk on as my laptop completely just freezes and I have no way to look at any of the box scores here. But regardless, I'll go off memory. Michigan beats USC in the big house. Like you said, this was a spot where USC is looking good, although their only big win on the year is against a team in LSU that may or may not be fraudulent. We don't fully know about that yet. Michigan, they just lost a couple weeks ago to Texas in the big house. They barely beat, what was it, Arkansas State last week at home. So you think going into this game, USC is a team with all the momentum. Michigan's looking like they might be the frauds, but that is, of course, where you're going to see a team like Michigan win. This was a true welcome to the Big Ten moment for the USC Trojans, as in these first couple games, like they played against an SEC team in LSU and they looked tough. They look like they can go in there and compete and not be this weak Pac-12 team that everyone kind of saw them as. And they definitely, I mean, they definitely had an opportunity to win this game. They played pretty good in the second half overall. They just kind of had a slow start. But I think this USC team is good. I think Michigan was just due to get a win at home versus a good team. I think that's just what it came down to. And they did it in their Michigan ways. They're not going to be able to do that against most teams. I still don't think Michigan's that good of a team coming out of this game. And I'll talk about their new ranking in the poll later. But Utah beats Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State was not good in this one at all. Cam Rising did not play for Utah. I don't believe it was Isaac Wilson in this one. Bowman got benched mid-game for Oklahoma State for Garrett Rangel to come in and throw 11 passes for 31 yards. Ollie Gordon was not even great in this one for Oklahoma State, which is a team that kind of felt like they were due. I think it was, what was it, Tulane and Arkansas were two teams that kind of struggled with early. If I'm not mistaken, I know they struggled with Arkansas. I can't remember if they played Tulane or not, but Utah comes in here, first year in the Big 12. They're already ranked number 12. We see in the new poll they're ranked up at number 10 now, sitting at 4-0. They look good. Staying in the Big 12, a team that we hyped up so much last week, K-State losing to BYU. That was crazy. I know I saw a lot of people saying BYU might be a scrappy team. I wasn't convinced they were going to be able to really compete in this one just because of how confident I've been in K-State, but I was unfamiliar with BYU's game. They go and put up 38 on K-State, and this one looked really, really good. My laptop freezing here is just absolutely just killing me though. Like I have no access to any of these scores. Notre Dame back to their dominant ways, still 28-3 over Miami of Ohio, who is a bad team, I must say. But regardless, Notre Dame is looking like they're starting to figure it out at least a little bit. A team I really, really like, Buffalo goes and beats Northern Illinois on the road 23-20. Buffalo looked great last week. They look great this week as well. We also see Texas A&M newly ranked, back ranked again. They only beat Bowling Green by 6 points. Who was it? Was it Penn State that struggled with Bowling Green too? There was another
I
good
think
team that
so,
struggled with
yes.
Bowling Green. So Bowling Green might be a scrappy 1-2 team, but that's about all I have to say. And that's not just because I physically can't look at another score.
Yeah, the Utah Oklahoma State game was very good. Isaac Wilson starts for Cam Rising. That is Zach Wilson's little brother,
Is it
ironically.
actually?
So that's Zach Wilson's little brother,
Oh
Isaac
wow, I didn't
Wilson.
know that.
Yeah, he
Wow.
played all right. I mean, he got the win. I mean, if you look at a picture of Isaac Wilson, he just looks like Zach Wilson. You can
Utah's
completely,
Utah's defense got them that win, but
yeah.
still. Yeah.
Utah's defense got him the win, but he played all right to get the job done. Ollie Gordon continues to disappoint so far this year, only 42 yards on 11 carries. And Oklahoma State overall, they got to figure it out quickly because, I mean, the playoff is expanded, but that's the win you wanted to have. Buffalo and Northern Illinois. Northern Illinois, we would kind of hoping that maybe they could win out and sneak their way into the playoff. That seems unlikely now as they fall to um didn't really have to do much on offense for Buffalo. It's just a defensive battle. They get the job done there, but it's just sad to see Northern Illinois. Really wanted them to continue pushing. And then the final game I'll talk about, I feel like you have to talk about it. Dion's boys, they get it done against Baylor somehow against all odds. It was pouring rain in Colorado, but the environment was crazy. Shitter Sanders makes a couple throws late that could have been touchdowns, but then at the end they get the Hail Mary and get the touchdown somehow, just against all odds. They force overtime, and in overtime, Travis Hunter forces the fumble after they get a rushing touchdown. He was phenomenal again, as always, 7 catches, 130 yards on offense, and defensively he gets a forced fumble and just playing all over the field. He's really a one of one at this point. But for Baylor, that's just a loss. That's pretty embarrassing. You had Colorado where you wanted them. You had them beat, and somehow they still find a way to win. But good job for Dion. He wins a close game like that in a game that I wasn't expecting Colorado to win, and he gets it done. They got UCF next week. That's a winnable game. Kansas State, I don't know. Arizona, Cincinnati, Texas Tech, Utah, Kansas, Oklahoma State. I think they could find a way to get themselves bowl eligible this year. We'll have to see, but it'll be close.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm fully bought in on that. I mean, Baylor should have won this game. That was truly embarrassing. As someone who bet Baylor, that was just a brutal, brutal end of that game to watch. My opinions on Colorado are I actually, even though I think it's kind of getting popular to hate on Dion, and I am kind of annoyed with the whole spectacle of the thing, and I'm kind of just tired of it. Travis Hunter might be one of the most likable players in college football. He's so good at both the positions he plays. He seems like a good kid, like likable guy. And even Dion, like as cocky as he is, it's still like it's prime time. It's Dion. He's done so much. He deserves to be as cocky as he is. It just truly just comes down to Shitter Sanders being the most unlikable dude I can remember in college football in a long, long time. Like he is really, really tough to root for. He almost makes me not like Dion because I can't stand him so much. And I wish that Travis Hunter was on a team where I know this is a team where he's probably going to get the most flash because it's Colorado, but or I mean that's not even really true, but he gets a lot of media talk because it's Colorado. But I wish we could see Travis Hunter on just like a really good regular team. Like if he was on Ohio State and he could just be like the next dominant Ohio State receiver who also happens to play corner and dominate at corner as well. That would just do so much better for him. I kind of hate that he has to be on a team with Shitter Sanders, and I feel like a lot of people lump them in together and be like, yeah, they're both look at these Colorado kids are all assholes. Like Travis Hunter isn't. It's really just Shitter. And he just kind of he's the what do they say, the bad apple that ruins the whole batch or whatever they say.
Yeah,
Whatever.
one bad apple ruins the
Yeah.
whole. Yeah, I get what you're saying.
Yeah, so they're tough to root for. We did not mention, I don't believe, Mizzou beating Vanderbilt, unless you did and I miss it in overtime. That was a phenomenal game. Vanderbilt has actually kind of been sneaky good this season. I forgot who it was week one. It might have been Arkansas. I can't remember who they competed with for most of that game and they ended up losing. And then same thing here with Mizzou. They competed for most of that game and ended up losing. Mizzou drops 4 spots in the poll because of it. I think that's a little dramatic, especially when you take a team like Penn State and put them in front of them, a team like Penn State who struggled against bad teams as well. So why can't Mizzou struggle against a bad team? That doesn't make any sense to me. And then you bump, just moving into the new poll here, you bump Michigan up 6 spots. I get that's a good win against USC, but are we really going to say that Michigan's the 12th best team in the country? I mean, who are we kidding here? I just completely disagree with that statement. And I feel like the poll this year, they have, and this is never the case in college basketball ever. No, the AP voters never take into account like, okay, this team just beat this team, so they have to be ahead of them in the poll no matter what. That's not the case in college basketball. Like if Oklahoma State is ranked 25 and Kansas is ranked 10 and Oklahoma State beats them, Kansas is going to drop to 15. Oklahoma State's going to go to like 16 and it won't matter. Like Kansas will still stay ahead of them even though they beat them. That's not the case here. Like they made a point to make sure Michigan was 1 spot above USC. They also made a point to make sure BYU was 1 spot above K-State. They're making it very intentional how they're voting as a whole here, and that's just very interesting to me. I don't think it makes a lot of sense from most standpoints. I know people get up in arms about, oh, we just beat them. How are we ranked below them? I get that. I've done that myself in college basketball, but you have to take into account the big picture. I don't think Michigan's the 12th best team in the country. I also don't think. I mean, K-State that was a very brutal loss against BYU. I will say, but they dropped 10 spots in the poll. We do get to see Boise State creep in now. They're sitting there at 25. That's very interesting to see. I will say, I think I didn't get a chance to mention about the Nebraska Illinois game. I think those two teams are two teams that are semi similar in terms of their standing right now. I think they're both sneaky good teams who just happen to play in pretty good conferences, and it's or the same conference, but a pretty good conference where they're looked at as these teams are scrappy, they're good, but are they going to be able to beat the Ohio States, the Penn States? Probably not. Does Michigan play either Illinois or Nebraska this year? Because if so, I think one of those teams gets a win on Michigan.
Michigan plays Illinois week 8.
Yep. Okay. Give it to me. Pencil it in at Illinois. That's going to be an upset win for Illinois. I'm calling it now.
I mean, they play a team
If
like
they're even an
Indiana
underdog,
too.
they might be a favorite in that game.
Indiana, last time I checked, they play Indiana in one of their last games of the season, but Indiana was favored or not. I don't know if they were favored, but they had the ESPN projections had Indiana beating Michigan. I don't know if that's still the case after Michigan's win this week, but that's another team kind of like Illinois that I could see maybe scrapping and stealing a win.
That's a solid team in IU. I agree with that. I'm a fan of them. They're 2 out of the poll too, just 6 votes away. So they're right there.
I'm happy Boise State's in the poll. Looking at it, I think they kind of deserve it
So,
as a Mountain West team. But overall, I mean, no changes in the top four. I think those teams deserve to stay the same. And I think Tennessee did deserve to jump to 5. So seeing Miami up there as well, a
but
lot
even
of
then,
Big Ten.
they barely jumped Ole Miss. 14 votes. Like
Yeah, it's literally all Big Ten and all SEC outside of Miami in the top 9. So
you can't convince me that Mizzou deserves to be 2 spots behind Penn State and 3 behind Oregon. You can't convince me of that. But I digress.
where's Mizzou at? I don't see
Mizzou
Mizzou.
sitting at 11. They have Oregon and
Oh
Penn
yeah,
State,
yeah, yeah,
two
yeah.
3-0 teams who struggled against bad teams ahead of them.
Yeah, I feel like with college football, for some reason, they always, I don't know if they just take in all the preseason bias way more than
Yeah,
any other,
that's true. There's
really.
also a lot more games in college basketball, a lot more chances for teams to fuck up than college
Yeah,
football.
and you kind of know what you see. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, a lot of these teams have played soft games so far, so
Right.
it's getting to
It's hard to
conference
do.
time.
I mean, and then there's a team like Notre Dame who they had a game that ended up being a loss against a team that the poll respects, and then they go and they dominate a few teams. They move up only a couple spots.
Yeah, it's a
That
rough loss though.
it is a rough loss, but I mean, the poll also had them as the 23rd best team in the country a week ago. So it can't be that bad of a loss. They lost by missing a field goal. I get it was at home, but they missed a field goal against allegedly the 23rd best team in the country. I don't know. Did they even get a vote this week?
No,
That's crazy. They're disrespecting the hell out of Buffalo, though. I mean, that's where it doesn't make any sense
another
to
one.
me.
Yeah, Buffalo. Yeah.
Illinois or
Oh,
Northern Illinois is the 23rd best team. They lose to Buffalo, who's been dominating teams, and Buffalo doesn't get a vote, and neither does Northern Illinois. So they both suck now. I don't know.
yeah. Another team that I just want to mention here. Navy gets a vote for the poll. Navy. Imagine Navy wins out and sneaks their way into the playoff, and we get like a
That would be
Alabama,
crazy.
just like
Alabama Navy.
like a Notre Dame Navy matchup.
I would love to see no Navy or Army or Air Force, one of those teams somehow like
And
sneak in.
Navy's been putting up numbers so far this year in
Yeah,
their
they've
three
been good.
games, 49, 38, and 56. So
Army's been good too.
yeah, I think they're
Army's
both
been
3 and
really good.
0.
Yeah. It's gonna be a good game at the end of the year. Army's been killing teams too. They like I think they beat the piss out of FAU. And I've been betting on them. Who did they play last week?
Yeah, Army's are gonna be Lehigh, FAU, and Rice.
Yeah, Rice. They beat the hell out of Rice this week. So
Man,
good for that. I would love to see them compete.
an Army Navy game winner to the CFP. Ooh,
I mean, and
that'd be electric.
how is the AAC? How's the AAC standings looking right now? Like, I mean, that's a winnable
I mean,
conference
they
for both
both
of those
beat. They
teams.
both. Well, Navy beat Memphis, so that puts them
They're
up
the
there.
only undefeated teams in the conference.
Yeah,
Army Navy 3-0. So, I mean, you think about some of the teams that left this conference. Cincinnati's gone. This is a winnable, dude. Army Navy. Wait, is there a is there a chance that it's Army Navy in the AAC championship and then Army Navy again the next week in the Army
is that
Navy
how that
game?
works? Is
I
that
don't
how that
know.
works?
Oh, here's the theory. Here's how it works. They both go undefeated leading into their conference title game. Army wins the conference title game. Navy wins the Army Navy game. They both go to the playoff.
Oh man.
That would be beautiful. Because I mean, who? I mean, North Texas, I think actually is a solid team. I think Tulane is solid. But outside of them, like, there's some horrible teams in this conference. Legitimately.
I know North Texas is actually really good. Your Mean Green are
I
a
know
solid
North
team.
Texas and Tulane are solid, and ECU might be solid too. But actually, I think
Yeah, it's okay. So here it is.
I'd say Tulane probably third.
Army and Navy. Okay, I'm trying to. It just gave me an ad and I completely lost where I was reading. Army has made it clear that it wants to keep its matchup at the end of the season. Army and Navy playing in the AAC, the rivalry game would be considered a non-conference game, which is crazy. So they could play in the AAC championship and then play again right after that.
That is crazy. Well, it has to be a non-conference game. That makes sense. That makes sense. If it was a conference game, they'd have to play it earlier. They can't play it after the championship.
Okay, so they could play each other back-to-back weeks. That'd be electric.
That would be
When do they do the
hilarious.
when do they do the announce the playoff though? Don't they do that right after the conference championships?
Well, yeah, I feel like they've only done it because there was no chance of Army and Navy mattering at all. It's the only game that week. But
That'll be interesting.
if they're both undefeated at the time, like it's kind of hard
They
to
could both
ignore
make it
that.
and both get in somehow
That's what
and
I'm
then
saying.
play each
Both
other.
one-loss teams, and then they play a third time in the playoff. There's a path there.
3 Army Navy games in 1 year.
Honestly, though, I will take the double games in the championship and
Oh yeah,
and week
easily.
whatever like that. I'll be rooting for that, but that's the point where we've gotten in this recap. So I think we're ready to move on
Yeah, it's
to
electric though.
to the first of the three games we need to recap before we can preview the 16 games for next week. Sunday night football, Chiefs, Falcons. Chiefs win this game 22-17 over the Falcons. We see the Chiefs have a significantly better run defense in this one than what we expected them to do. We know that they've been a good running team or run defending team so far this year, but their pass defense has been so bad. We thought maybe that would open up some stuff there for the Falcons. That was not really the case. The Falcons were definitely in this game, but the Chiefs defense comes out there and has a great second half, holds them to just 3 points. We see Carson Steele come out there in his first game starting for Isaiah Pacheco. He was not horrible, 17 for 72. I think he'll get a lot better. We see Mahomes throw another pick. Travis Kelce still not getting involved. I know Mahomes said after the game that they were trying to run plays for Travis and they just can't get him open because these teams are just focusing so heavily on him. But then you see a guy like Rashee Rice be able to go get 12, 110, and a touchdown. He was phenomenal for them. Drake London gets in the end zone again for Atlanta. But Atlanta competes in this one. They were in it. My biggest takeaway from this one, and I'm not going to go too much in depth on these games because we're about to talk about all six of these teams in a little bit here. But for Atlanta, I think they're in a fine spot, but the Chiefs at this point, I think, are just a team that, regardless of how they play, they're just going to win games. I mean, we've seen the Chiefs first three games. They almost lost against the Ravens. They didn't. They almost lost against the Bengals in week two. They didn't. They get a PI. They score. They almost lose against the Falcons here on the road in a game where the Falcons, it was the first Monday night game in Atlanta in a while. Kirk Cousins is coming off winning in prime time, and they still find a way to get it done despite being down going into halftime, having to settle for a lot of field goals early in the first half. They still get it done. How many field goals does Bucker ends up with? 3 field goals, 3 for 3 on the game. But yeah, I just think this Chiefs team is looking like a veteran team who's been to the Super Bowl and has won multiple Super Bowls. They're not going to lose these dumb games. They're going to lose some games at some point in the year. I'm sure there's going to be a game at some point in the year where they just get outplayed from start to finish and maybe they get like semi blown out. But for the most part, these games where they're hovering around a lead, they're barely beating a team, they're not playing great. Most of the time, they're going to win those games. That's just the mark of a great team. We saw it here on Sunday Night Football. I think I said Monday night at one point in there. There was something.
Yes, Sunday night. Yeah. It also is a mark of a great team and a dynasty team when they get the refs on their side to make the call for them almost every game, as we see it happen again. It's I wouldn't be as upset if it didn't happen the week before where they had gotten the exact same call to win the game when they were playing offense and the PI happens. But then to go into the next week and they don't call the pass interference on the Chiefs in this game, where if that was Mahomes throwing it to Kelce, that pass interference would be thrown 100 times out of 100 in every single scenario. But the fact that it was the Falcons and it was Kirk Cousins and Kyle Pitts, the Chiefs get away with the pass interference, and it's just annoying to me. I mean, you still had a chance to win the game. It just pisses me off that that happens. But Mahomes gets it done, 217 yards and 2 touchdowns. Carson Steele with no Pacheco, and it seems like he's going to be out for a very long time, maybe until the playoffs. Steele gets 72 yards on the ground. He had a solid performance. I mean, we'll talk about them later, but I think they just called up Kareem Hunt to add him to the
They
backfield.
did, yep.
Rashee Rice has a phenomenal game. I think this was his career high in receptions with 12, has 110 yards and a touchdown. He is by far and away Mahomes' favorite weapon, even with Xavier Worthy and Travis Kelce, obviously. Juju Smith-Schuster ends up getting a touchdown in this game as well. He's back on the Chiefs. Nice to see him do that. But for the Falcons, you've played a lot of tough teams so far in the season. You're getting some of your harder games out early. And I feel like every game I watched, Kirk Cousins looks a little bit better, a little bit more comfortable. And if that can just continue, this team's going to be very good. They were unable to really get Bijan going on the ground in this game. They're going to have to try to get that fixed next week. He only has 16 carries for 31 yards, so not very good, but I think they'll figure it out. Darnell Mooney was great for them as well. He seems to be getting a good connection with Kirk Cousins, him and Drake London, two good receivers, and even Kyle Pitts had a big game in this one. So for the Falcons, I'm not too worried about them either. I really do think it's going to be a three-way battle for the NFC South. And for the Chiefs, they've won like 8 straight games by like one score or less now, so it's just going to happen.
Yep, moving on here to Bills beating the Jaguars 47-10. If I had to give out an award for the game that pissed me off the most this week, it was wide and away this one, mainly or partially because of how pissed I was that we had to watch 2 Monday night games at the same time on the same channel, and we have to do it again for some reason next week. But the Bills or the Jags just never had a chance in this one. The Bills go and they score in their first 5 games, 5 drives of the game. They don't just score on 5 drives, they score touchdowns on their first 5 drives. Jacksonville goes punt, field goal, interception. The game was over legitimately just like that. They had no chance in this one. Their defense was awful. They looked fine against the Browns, or they looked good against the Browns. They looked good against Miami, who we thought maybe there was a chance Miami was off to a slow start. Maybe there was a chance the Jags defense was good. We don't know. Week 2 comes along. They play against the Browns. We're like, this game's just going to bring upon more questions. Jags end up looking good on defense. The Browns look bad on offense. But, oh, maybe the Browns just suck dick on offense and the Jags might not be that good. We get to week 3, and I think that was right, to be honest. The Jags, I want to have confidence in this defense because from time to time, especially against that offensive teams, they do look good, but they don't really get to the pass rusher. Their secondary is good at times, but sometimes they just get absolutely exposed. If I'm a Jags fan, I want Doug Peterson fired seconds after this game. I mean, this was just an embarrassing game. Josh Allen just goes nuclear in the first half, 4 touchdowns. It's so hard to do that. Khalil Shakir was great for them. Even Keon Coleman finds the end zone. He only gets 1 catch, but he finds the end zone. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 different pass catchers for Buffalo. They were great in this one. We see Christian Kirk go 8 catches for 79. He was fine, I guess. Mac Jones ends up getting in for the Jags in this one. I didn't know that until just now because I turned this bullshit off after betting on the Jags. But regardless, I don't have shit to say about this one. I don't. I blame the Jags. I'm not gonna look at this game and be like the Bills are a juggernaut. I can't. I'm sorry. I blame this one on the Jags fully.
Yeah, I went into this game expecting the Bills to win this game, and they went out and just dominated it. I wasn't expecting how well they played, but it really doesn't shock me overall. I'm still not high on this Jags team. I never really was. Their secondary has not been good, and I don't think will be good throughout the season.
They were
And
good in the
Josh
first
Allen,
2 games. They just sucked in the last night.
I mean, they're bottom 10 right now in pass yards
Because
per
they were
game.
so bad last night. They gave up
I mean,
300 last night.
263 passing yards. That's not too much.
But think about how many passing yards there have been in the league.
I
Like
mean,
there
yeah,
haven't been any in general. Like they played good again in their 2 first games. They played good.
I
Played
don't
good
know.
against Tua and Tyreek.
I'm not a fan of their secondary overall, but that's just me. Bills go out, dominate. James Cook, he doesn't really have to run the ball. I mean, Bills really just destroyed him. It wasn't close. I think that you said it, 4 drives, 4 touchdowns to start the game.
5.
Five, yeah, 5 drives, 5 touchdowns to start the game. They spread the ball out. It doesn't look like they're missing Stephon Diggs at all. They seem to be confident without him. And Trevor Lawrence just continues to disappoint throughout his career. And this is the first time, like, really, I've been hearing from the announcers finally putting doubt in Trevor Lawrence and the media putting down Trevor Lawrence, saying that he's not this guy that he was supposed to be, and he's really been disappointing, especially this season. They're 0-3. They just paid him $50 million a year for the next 4 years. He's gonna have to prove something because right now that's really not looking very good. Even Travis Etienne, who I've never been high on in the NFL, he struggles a little bit in this game, and they just need to figure it out on offense. And I agree. I blame it on Doug Peterson. I think he should. I don't think you can fire him at this point in the season. You have to kind of ride it out, but the writing's on the wall already for him. So Bills are a good team. You can't convince me otherwise. I think they're going to be fighting for the Super Bowl this season easily.
I disagree. I think their secondary has too many issues. I don't think they're going to be able to do it
Their
enough
secondary has been
defensively.
good, great so far this year.
I mean, Cardinals week 1,
It's a
Jags
good
week
team.
2 or week 3. Who did they play week 2?
Um,
The Dolphins without Tua for half the game. I mean, I
I
don't know.
mean, but
I'm
Tua
not.
was shut down in that game before
Tua
he
was
got
shut
hurt.
down by the Jags defense the week before.
I mean, maybe I mean,
I,
Tua might
I
not be good.
I mean, I don't know. I don't have doubts about the Bills' offense, even despite they're not having a dominant wide receiver, despite them looking at times like they can't run the ball. I don't have that much of a doubt in the Bills' offense really at all. It's just this isn't a Super Bowl winning defense in my opinion. Maybe they'll turn into that at some point in the year. McDermott is a good defensive coach. Personnel wise, you're not going to convince me DeMar Hamlin and the Bills defense are going to win them a Super Bowl. You're not going to be able to convince me of that.
I mean, they're sitting right there with the top teams defensively in pass yards per game. So that's just
They played against Kyler in his first game with his rookie receiver. They didn't look great in that
Kyler
game.
dominated in the second game, though.
That's fine.
I don't
And,
know.
and then they
I
played
think you're
against Tua and Skylar Thompson. And now they played against an offense that was pathetic. I mean, they looked horrible. And they've
maybe
looked
it's because
horrible.
that defense looked that good.
They've looked bad for 3 games. They looked bad against Miami. They looked bad against Cleveland. They look bad here.
Yeah,
I
look
don't
bad.
know. It's
Never trusted him.
I'm struggling to believe in the Bills, but I always struggle to believe in the Bills. And
I'll say
despite
you're a Bills hater.
I am, I'm definitely a Bills hater, and you are a Bills lover for sure. You are. You picked them.
I'm not
I
gonna
don't
lie.
think you've ever not picked them on the pod. But I will say, despite in my Bills doubting, where there are times in the season where I look dumb, every single time it comes to fruition, and they're not good
I
enough to make
mean,
the Super Bowl. No matter how many people in the preseason pick them as their sneaky pick, when it comes down to it, they don't get it done. It's just a fact.
that's just because there's one team that gets it done right now.
That is also true. But another team who I will say I was right about to start the season in the preview, the Bengals lose to the Commanders 38-33. I picked the Bills on the pod in the preview. I switched my actual betting pick to Commanders plus 7.5 before
We
the
said it.
game.
We said it right after we recorded the pod. We had both said right after we finished recording the last pod that the Commanders are going to win this game, aren't they?
Yeah. And at least I was smart enough to do that because I still bet the Jags, but I was smart enough to switch this one up and it at least helped save me a little bit. But Joe Burrow and the offense looked fine in this one. They couldn't run the ball. Shocker. They're never going
Yeah.
to be able to run the ball. That's going to continue to be a big issue for them. Jamar Chase was great in this one. He kept getting open, 6 for 118, 2 touchdowns. We see T. Higgins come back. He didn't look phenomenal, but towards the end of the game, you could see he was starting to get in his rhythm a little bit. I think this Bengals offense, passing offense, is going. I mean, they're going to be good in the passing offense. They're playing against the worst secondary in the NFL, and they have Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and Joe Burrow. They're going to look good in the pass game. If they didn't look good in the pass game this game, we would have significant issues. So I'm not going to come out here and be like, give them the benefit of the doubt. Hey, they look good in the pass game. They should have. They needed to. They still sucked in the run game. The Commanders' run defense is fine. It's not great. Jaden Daniels, phenomenal. 21 for 23, 91%, 2 touchdowns, no picks. Commanders couldn't even really run the ball either. Brian Robinson went 16 for 33. Eckler got hurt in this one after breaking up a big 24-yard run. Terry McLaurin, 4 catches for 100 yards and a touchdown. He hasn't been the most productive this year, but he's gotten a shit ton of targets, and I think he's going to start to break through, and it's looking like he is Daniel's favorite target. Huge touchdown at the end of that game against a Bengals defense who I actually think is decent in the pass game. I think they're a decent pass defense. I think they suck as a run defense for now, but as a pass defense, I think they're pretty solid, and it was impressive to see Jaden Daniels do what he did against this team. I think the Commanders, I think a lot of people, because of this win, are going to start looking at the Commanders as like, oh, this is a sneaky team that's going to win some games and surprise some people. And I agree. I think they can surprise some people against bad defensive teams because they're going to give up points to everybody. That's just the case. They're going to give up a ton of points to everybody. Bad defensive teams like the Bengals, who, although I think their pass defense is fine, they're not elite defensively by any means. And that gave them the opportunity to go put up 38 points and win this game. But just embarrassing stuff from the Bengals. It's embarrassing because so many people believed in them. When you look at the roster and you look at Zach Taylor, it's not that shocking that they're 0-3. They have a game that is maybe the most must-win game in week 4 in the history of the NFL next week against Carolina. I feel like we were having the same conversation about the Bengals last year, and I still will go to the grave saying it didn't matter that Joe Burrow got hurt. I was still convinced this Bengals team was not making the playoffs. There's just something. I know they came back and they had a decent rest of the year with Browning, but regardless, I do not believe in this Bengals team right now. I don't think in today's NFL you can win with no run game. I don't care how and I'm starting to ramble here, but I don't care how important passing is in today's NFL, and everybody does it, and it's the most important thing. You cannot win in the playoffs if you can't run the ball and stop the run, and the Bengals can't do either. And for that reason, I think they are in deep risk already of removing themselves from playoff contention.
Yeah, we talked about it on last week's recap that you have to be able to run the football right now in the NFL, and the Bengals can't do that, like you said. They had 124 yards rushing, but overall throughout the game, many times they were unable to get it done. This was a very entertaining game. Both offenses played very well, very well. This was the first game since 1940 with no turnovers or punts. 1940, that's like what, 86 years ago? That's a long time. Or 80, yeah, 86 years ago, something like that. Jane Daniels was phenomenal, 21 for 23. I think that's the rookie completion record in NFL history. 2 touchdowns, no picks. The second touchdown was a phenomenal throw to Terry McLaurin, who really gets it going. He hasn't had the numbers so far this year. This time he gets it. And the Commanders' offense throughout the game was just phenomenal. They don't really have a big running game overall outside of Jaden Daniels, really. If they can figure that out, this offense could be very good. And this is their second game in a row without a punt, which is just very impressive. Tress Way has not seen the field in a long time. Maybe that'll continue next week. Who knows? But for the Bengals, this was a must-win game. And your defense, which I thought their defense was solid going into the season, and it's been solid so far throughout the season. Just literally couldn't get a stop against Jaden Daniels and the Commanders' offense. Very impressive performance by them. The Bengals, I really don't know what to think. I think Joe Burrow is a great quarterback, but you got to be able to win games. And so far, the Bengals obviously haven't been able to do that this season. Zach Taylor just seems to be like I don't know. One day I think he's a great coach. The next day I think he's a terrible coach. I don't know what it is, but you have to have your team ready to go early in the season. That's a sign of a good coach if your team's ready to go early in the season. And this Bengals team is never ready to go early in the season. So maybe they figure it out and they find their way in the playoffs. They're like the only team that can ever compete with the Chiefs, it seems, in the playoffs. But you have to get to the playoffs. You don't just play one team. You can be built to beat the Chiefs, but you have to be built to beat 31 other teams as well. So, or 30 other teams.
And
So,
if you're built to beat the Chiefs, you better fucking beat the Chiefs. And they didn't do
yeah,
that in week 2.
they didn't
So
do that week 2, but
they named it Burrowhead after beating the Chiefs one
one
time
time.
in Arrowhead.
I think they beat them twice in Arrowhead.
No, I think it was only once,
Yeah, there's
right?
only one. I don't know. I can't
Because they
remember.
beat him one, or they beat him in Cincinnati too. I think. I think
That
they
could be
only
because I
have
thought
one.
because going into the game he was 3-1 against Mahomes.
Oh, so maybe it was 2. I thought it was only one time in Arrowhead though, which would be hilarious. But we can move on now to previewing week 4 of the NFL season. We will
Ooh.
start with Thursday night football. Cowboys at Giants. Cowboys get sort of a tune-up game, I guess, after a tough starting schedule. The Browns, you can say what you want about their holes at points, but they do have a ton of talent. And then I do believe the Saints and the Ravens are good teams. And that was kind of a tough start for Dallas. But Dallas does have the highest passing yards per game, but that is heavily inflated by being down so much in their past 2 games. They had to pass the ball a ton late against Baltimore and basically that whole game against New Orleans. And that is why their passing yards are so inflated. I definitely do not have them as the best passing offense in the league through 3 weeks. Giants have seen a decent amount of success on the ground. Devin Singletary has been surprisingly pretty good for the Giants, which is shocking considering it took Saquon. It was so hard for Saquon to run with this O-line, and he was great at times with it, but there were times where it's like, what is he supposed to do? And then Devin Singletary comes in here and he's looked solid so far. Daniel Jones is looking more and more comfortable. Cowboys pass rush just has to wake up. They absolutely have to wake up. They looked solid week 1, weeks 2 and 3. They were basically non-existent. It's such a good unit, a unit that you are going to end up spending so much money on here in the future. How funny would it be if Michael Parsons ends up like not being that good anymore and Jerry doesn't pay him? He gives like
That
Zeke a
would
big extension or something. That would be hilarious. But the Giants defense, their pass rush has been pretty solid. It's a pretty strong unit overall. I think they're number 2 in sacks so far behind the Vikings, and their whole unit has, even in the secondary, has been solid. Cowboys will have to block for Dak to win this game against this pass rush. I'm not sure if they're going to be able to completely do that. And once again, we're talking about a Dallas team that I don't care if I sound like a broken record. I'm going to say it over and over and over again. Very similar to the Bengals. You can't win if you can't run the ball, and we're seeing it over and over and over and over. I'm after a tough first 3 weeks. I'm gonna start switching up how I make these picks. Give me the damn Giants at +6 on Thursday Night Football at home. Give me Daniel Jones, my stud of week 3.
Yeah, I'm gonna also probably be changing it up a little bit going this week after our rough back-to-back week performances.
If we're
But
both changing it up, then neither of us are changing it up.
yeah, that does seem like it. But for this game, overall, I just cannot see Daniel Jones having that good of a performance in back-to-back weeks. Once I see it, maybe I'll believe it. I'm just not sure yet. Like you said, Devin Singletary's been solid so far this season. The Giants have been able to run the ball a little bit. They are middle in the pack against the pass, which does worry me a little bit. I think I could see the Cowboys getting it. Their passing yards per game is inflated a little bit with how far they've been behind. CeeDee Lamb has been struggling overall so far this season. I think they need to hit that out a little bit between him and Dak. The run defense, I feel like, has to give a performance to show that they actually have some effort and some heart. And I think they'll be able to do that against the Giants. And so I think the Cowboys find a way to win this game. And I'm reluctantly still going to go. Just don't see Daniel Jones and the Giants being able to do it in back-to-back weeks. So I'm going to go with Cowboys -6.
I know like there's a lot of Daniel Jones hate, and trust me, you could probably take a million clips of me talking shit about Daniel Jones. I mean, week 1 recap, I know I went in on him, but there's something about him that like I have like some sort of sympathy, empathy, I don't know, but towards him because like the Giants fans just fucking hate him. Like the O line has been bad his whole career. His weapons have been pretty bad until now with Malik Neighbors, and even
Yeah.
then, like they have a deep unit, but it doesn't get a ton of recognition. He had Saquon, but you can't really do shit with your good running back if you have a bad O line. So I think there's like some moment. There's something in my head that makes me feel bad for him and makes me want to root for him. And we saw what he did against the Vikings in a game that for maybe the most random game that we will just forever bring up. How great
Yeah.
they played in that wild card game, but I'm rooting for
Could
him.
could you imagine if they just decided to keep Saquon too? Their offense wouldn't look terrible if they were able to throw out Saquon and Neighbors right now. I mean, Devin
Honestly,
Singletary's been solid, but Saquon and Neighbors would just make it
I think they just
a
got to
lot
the point.
easier.
I think they got to the point where they're like, our O line's just going to be bad forever, so we might as well just not have a good running back. Like,
Yeah.
there's just no reason for us. And that was definitely a mistake, not signing Saquon and signing Daniel Jones. That was definitely a mistake. And I don't think Daniel Jones is going to be a good quarterback, but I'm going to root for him. And I think although I had some strong opinions about how I felt about the Giants after week 1, I think the Vikings just maybe were better than we thought, and Brian Flores was just able to confuse them. And I think the Giants, especially in their pass rush has been great so far. They've been solid in the run game. I think they have some decent receivers. I think they have a good enough team that Daniel Jones doesn't have to be great. He just can't be Daniel Jones. So if he can figure that out, I think the Giants could be a solid team. But
Yeah. If I see it in back-to-back weeks, I'll believe it. I
yeah.
need to see it before I really go with it.
And maybe hopefully we will on
I
Thursday
don't
night.
I don't I don't think that's a bad thought process at all.
And
That's
they're big dogs. I mean, it's probably gonna be
that's
the
one I'm
popular
not gonna
pick. Everyone
touch.
everyone takes the Giants +6, and then the Cowboys come out there and dominate, look good for the first time. Whatever. But um moving on here. Steelers at Colts. Steelers head into Indy at 3-0 after winning last week. Colts run defense improved greatly last week against the Bears, but I think the Steelers are still gonna have plenty of success. They're gonna be able to run the ball more than they've been able to for most of this year so far. The Broncos, they were able to run the ball fine. The Broncos don't have a great run defense. Same thing with the Falcons and who did they play? The Chargers have a solid run defense, but Colts defense as a whole, I think just overperformed last week. I think the Steelers will be able to put up some points in this one. I think Justin Fields is going to continue to get more and more comfortable, and he actually looks good so far this year. Colts offense will succeed the best when they can run the ball. Steelers are among the hardest teams to run the ball against in the NFL right now. Steelers' physicality early, I think, is just very impressive. Even for the Steelers, even for a Mike Tomlin team that you know they're going to be a super physical team, they're going to be able to bully you at the line. Even for that expectation, I still think they even surpassed that so far this year, and they just look like a really physical team. If the Steelers can find a way to just score points consistently, they're going to win a ton of games. And I think in this one, they are able to score. And I think they win this game semi easily. It's going to be close because they don't score a ton of points, and it's hard to blow teams out when you don't score a ton of points. But I think for a Steeler game, I think they handily win this one. Give me the Steelers at -2.
Yeah, this is kind of just almost a nightmare matchup for the Colts. They want to run the ball, and the Steelers are a team that has shown that it's very hard to run against them so far, only giving up 71.3 rushing yards per game. Justin Fields has been solid. If he can continue to just not turn the ball over and be very good at handing the ball off to their running backs, I can see the Steelers kind of running all over this Colts team. We've seen how bad they were in week 1 and week 2. I'm worried that week 3 is a fluke defensively, but also I feel like there is a chance that they woke up and figured it out. This Colts team absolutely punked the Steelers last season. And late in the season, Colts dominated that game, ran all over them, passed pretty much all over them as well, and were able to shut down the Steelers offense. I do think it's a new Steelers team. Although the Colts offensive line has been debatably the best in the NFL so far this season, I think they're ranked first in both pass and rush in offensive line numbers, but tough matchup. I just don't like the Colts overall against this defense, and TJ Watt has been very good so far this season. So I'm also going to go with Steelers -2, but I think it could be a good game still.
Okay, moving on here to Vikings at Packers. Two of the best coaches in football here with LaFleur and O'Connell. Jordan Love should be back for this one. I think it seemed like he almost suited up against the Titans last week. I think he'll probably be back against a huge rivalry game here and at home. The Vikings have looked phenomenal to start the year, especially defensively. Their pass rush has been the best in the league. They should be all over Love, making it a really tough time for him in his first game back. You got a guy who's coming off of a knee injury. He now has to run all over because the pass rush is all over him. That's just a recipe for disaster for them. Packers pass defense has been good, I should say. Vikings will have to lean on the run game in this one, but I still think that's a good thing for them. They could lean on Aaron Jones, get him to work. Vikings match up really well here, given the circumstances with Love coming off of a knee injury, but I am going to fade my own thoughts here, and I'm going to bet on the Vikings falling apart, and the Packers are at home here. LaFleur knows this Vikings pass rush already. You don't have a situation where it's your first time seeing it, as we talked about last week. LaFleur knows what he's getting at here with the Vikings. Played him twice last year. Packers are at home here in Lambeau. I got the Pack to win this one, -2.5.
Yeah, at first I wanted to pick this one as the dogs as well, but Sam Darnold's been playing at an elite level. Jordan Love might be able to play in this one, so that's big for the Packers. Offensively, they can lean more on the pass, less on the run like they have been. They've been able to average 204 yards rushing so far, which is the best in the NFL, even better than the Ravens so far. They've been running the football great. If Jordan Love can come back and get the pass offense going, this Packers team is going to be very good. I don't know if the Vikings have the ability to slow down the Packers run game overall. They have been solid against the run, only giving up 71.3 rushing yards per game, which is second in the NFL. I think whoever gets ahead early in this game is going to win. And with the Packers being at home, Jordan Love being back, Jordan Love seeing the Brian Flores defense, like you had said last year, he has that to his advantage. And that is the reason I'm going to also pick the Packers -2.5. But this is a very good game, and it's going to be close.
Okay, moving on here to Rams at Bears. McVay has won his last three versus the Bears. I'm still waiting to see this Bears offense improve as everybody is. I believe it starts with the run game for the Bears. I think they need to be able to run the ball to have success. If they don't, I think it's going to be a long, long season for them. Rams have given up a ton of rushing yards early, but they have played against two great running teams, and they went down big versus Arizona, so they weren't running it up. Were not running in that one, or they gave up a ton of rushing yards in that one because they were down by so much. Arizona was just running the ball. Rams have not had much of a pass rush this year at all, but this Bears O line is so bad that I think the Rams defense does see some success against them. The Bears pass defense has been good to start the year, but they have given up some rush yards. Honestly, I feel like the Bears should win this game, but McVay clears Eberflus so far that I honestly just cannot justify taking Eberflus until the Bears actually put up a convincing performance against a good team. So, um, give me the Rams +3 here.
Yeah, it's +2.5 right now. I'm looking at it. So
It's +2.5 at +102 though. And 2.5 for the Bears is -122. So the actual even numbers of those are three.
oh, okay. Well, doesn't matter for me. I'm still going to stick with the Rams regardless.
Yeah, me
Rams
too.
offense
I had
still
the same thoughts.
still banged up. No Cup or Nakua, but Stafford looked solid last week, even without them spreading the ball out. He's going to have to play pretty good to get this offense moving against this Bears secondary that is pretty good, but I think he can do it. The Rams defense is very bad against the run so far this year, and luckily this is kind of a good matchup considering the Bears are just absolutely awful at running the football right now. You look back at the film against the Colts, and their offensive line was almost clueless as to what to do when they're running the ball. Just all around bad performance. They're bad against the pass, which could lead to Caleb Williams playing a little bit better, putting up a lot of yards, but they still have to go out and score. And I completely agree with your coaching staff thing. That's where I think the Rams have the huge advantage with Sean McVay offensively against Matt Eberflus and Shane Waldron. I love that matchup with the Rams there. Bears have to find a run game somehow. We've been beating it to a drum almost in every game that the team who has the better run game seems to be the team to win. If you have no run game, you're going to struggle. And that's why I think the Bears are going to struggle again. If they can find a run game, I'll start betting on the Bears. I did early in the season, but I need to see a run game. Their offensive line has to be better. I'm taking Rams plus 2.5 or plus 3, whatever. Either.
Yeah, I definitely got Eberflus in my bottom five coaches. And
Oh yeah,
I've been
easily.
trying to think of my bottom five, and I'm looking at some of the teams we talked about to see. And I don't think I put anybody in that bottom five from the teams we've talked about so far. I mean, McCarthy and Dable are knocking on the door. They're not there yet. But so far, I'm going to have Eberflus as the first one in my
I
top
think I have
five.
Eberflus
Bottom
almost
five.
dead last right now. I put Antonio Pierce towards the bottom just because I don't know.
I'm gonna as we go
It's
through the
tough.
preview here, I'm gonna try to pick out which people I have at the bottom. I'm gonna try to stay away from the new coaches though, because it's hard to tell.
Yeah,
But
that's the thing is that's hard with the new coaches. I
and
mean,
we've had so many.
I want to put Brian Callahan down there just for simply
Me
how he
too.
talks to
Me
Will
me too.
Levis.
Me too. Me too. Honestly, but I mean, we had similar criticisms with Vrabel.
Yeah,
How we talked to and
and
about
maybe
about.
it's just Levis, man. Maybe it's just
Yeah,
Levis.
fuck. Maybe it is. Damn it. God damn it. Well, Levis was wild and out before, or he wasn't as bad with Vrabel. Like he just had some of the good. He just hasn't had any of the good yet. It's just all been the bad.
Which we didn't talk about in the recap, but he did have a third straight week with an absolute classic picture.
I didn't see the third one.
He was laying face first on the ground, and there was a Packers dude who was just jumping on top of him. It was
Oh
a
man,
hilarious photo.
he's such a likable guy too. It sucks to see.
I don't know if you would say that, but
He's weird too. I'll say he
I'd
is
say he's weird. The
very
mayonnaise
weird.
thing
Mayonnaise in
overall
the
is just
coffee. Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I agree. As a Kentucky fan and someone who hates mayonnaise, I have always been torn on that. But um, regardless, moving on here to Broncos at Jets. Broncos coming off a big win in Tampa. Their defense has been actually solid to start the year, especially in the past game. They've been pretty solid with Surtain. Rodgers and the Jets are starting to get comfortable though. But the Broncos are not a complete slouch in the secondary. We've talked about this easy stretch here for the Jets as they're starting to get towards the end of it here. But this pass defense is not a complete slouch. I don't think Rodgers and the Jets are going to have a field day on this one. Broncos offense has been pretty brutal so far, though. Nix has seen some success, but he's not going to see that success that he's seen so far against the Jets defense. Probably ends up being a decently low scoring game. I look at this game similar to how I look at the Patriots Jets game last week. We saw the Jets as a team where it's like they haven't been fully dominant yet, and they're playing against a team who they have a scrappy defense from time to time. They can have an okay offense. We'll see what the Jets could do, but the okay offense is just never good enough to be good against this Jets defense. I think we see a very similar thing here with the Broncos. I want to take some dogs today, and I'm going to, believe me, but I think the Jets take care of business here. I'm going to take the Jets -7.5. If it's still at 7.5, yeah.
yeah. This is another game where the big spreads have been the main ones, kind of killing me overall. But I think this Jets offense has started to figure it out. This is year 2 of Nathaniel Hackett revenge game. We're 1-0 in Nathaniel Hackett revenge games, trying to make it 2-0 this season. Jets defense against a rookie quarterback is the big matchup that I do like in this one. I see the Jets absolutely shutting Bo Nix down. They looked phenomenal last week against Jacoby Brissett, and they did cover a big spread last week. So if they can do it 2 weeks in a row, that will be tough, but I'm kind of banking on that to happen again this week. They're great against the pass. Bo Nix they struggle against the run a little bit, but this Broncos offense hasn't shown too much in the run game. They've been trying to find something, but it's been a struggle. I like the Jets defense to dominate, and I like Aaron Rodgers to just take control of the ball, not turn it over, get a couple touchdowns, get the team ahead, and not coast to the end, but just get the lead and not worry about putting your team, letting the Broncos back into the game. I think the defense will prevent that from happening. So I do like the Jets -7.5. And so far, I've really not changed anything. So from
All
my
right.
original strategy.
Moving on here to Bengals at Panthers. We spoke about the Bengals enough. Not going to have much to say about them, even though a majority of my notes are about the Bengals. But they are 0-3, and like we said earlier, they have to win this game. Dalton and the Panthers are coming off of a big win in Vegas. Like I said before the Dalton game, I think he sees some success early. We saw him have that against the Raiders, but I do think he's going to fade quickly. And this Bengals defense has been susceptible to the run game early. Not as bad as the Raiders were, though, last week. Bengals pass defense has been solid. I think Dalton actually is going to have a long day against this offense. Bengals' biggest, or against this defense, excuse me, Bengals' biggest weakness offensively is their lack of a run game. The Panthers have been pretty bad against the run. This is the time, Cincinnati. Please figure out how to run the damn ball. You're playing against a team who you could do it against. Please don't get in the mode of let's just chuck it to Jamar Chase every time. If you're going to go put up 40 points a game doing that, go ahead. But that's not going to be the case every game. Regardless, as hard as I've been on the Bengals in this episode, I'm going to take them to finally find a win. And I think the Panthers come back to earth. So give me the Bengals -4.5 here.
Yeah, Bengals, this is a must-win game for them. They basically do or die game right now. You cannot fall to 0-4 at this point in the season. They need to find a run game, like you said. It's been embarrassing not having it. Last week, they were able to finally get T. Higgins back and have their little trio of T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, and Joe Burrow. The offense wasn't the issue in the game, which is why I'm still confident in them playing the Panthers. The defense should figure it out, and they should not be caught off guard by an Andy Dalton-led Carolina Panthers. But it is a red rifle revenge game going against the Bengals. Chance to play his former team, but I don't think this Bengals defense will be caught off guard. They have to prove a point at some point that they're solid. The Panthers defense, if weakness is in the run game, they can't run the ball, so that is kind of neutral. Maybe they can stay close, but 4.5 point spread, I don't hate that. And I'm sticking with the favorite, Bengals -4.5.
Okay, moving on here to Eagles at Bucks. Eagles go back into Tampa for the first time since they lost in the wild card round last season. Philly is coming off of a win that they probably should have blown in New Orleans. They almost did. Sirianni is dragging down Philly so much, and we have made it to my second coach to make the bottom five. Nick Sirianni is 100% in there. So far we're sitting at Sirianni and Eberflus, no order. But hopefully Vita Vea is back to help this Bucks rush defense. They need it desperately. When he's in there, they are a completely different team overall. I think we see the Bucks look a lot better offensively than they did last game. I think they look a lot better against this Eagles secondary. Eagles pass rush has been really bad early. They need to step it up there. They need to get to Baker and fluster him. My pick fully depends on Vita Vea, and we don't know yet. So I'm going to say this. I'm willing to just lock it in this exact stipulation. If Vita Vea plays, no matter if he's limited or not, or how much he practices all week, give me the Bucks. If he doesn't play, whether it's 100 snaps or 0, I'll take Philly. So if he's active, not even play. If he's active, I'll take the Bucks. If he's inactive, I'll take Philly, whatever the line is.
Okay, that's an interesting.
I just think there's not many times when I believe that one player makes that big of a difference, but in this one, I think it does, because if Vita Vea doesn't play, Saquon's going to run all over them. I don't think the Bucks have a chance. If Vita Vea is in there, I think the matchup turns way more in the Bucks' favor and they win it. So I think he's big enough of an impact player here. And we're doing this on Tuesday, so I wouldn't be doing the caveat shit if I had somewhat of. There's no reports. There's nothing out there whether he's going to play or not. The only thing I'm basing this off of is he almost played last week.
I agree, but I also feel the same way for the Eagles almost about AJ Brown. I don't really expect Devontae Smith to be playing with a coming off that kind of scary looking concussion. The Eagles have to come out firing in this game. It's a revenge game going against a team that embarrassed you in the playoffs last season. Saquon's been phenomenal so far this season. They've been able to run the ball. They're third in rushing offense. Saquon and Hurts have been a very good duo in that case. Defensively, they seemed to find something last week and were able to shut down the Saints offense that really dominated in week 1 and week 2 and put up massive numbers. The Bucs looked great in week 1 and week 2, and then in week 3, they kind of stumbled and tripped and fell a little bit. So I feel like they're going to come out hot. I do think this is going to be a close game. We've talked about another team that struggled with the run game, the Buccaneers. Rashad Wright really hasn't been a great running back. Been phenomenal in the pass game, but not running the ball. Bucky Irving has been good in the run game for him, and according to Todd Bowles, he's earned himself more touches. So they're going to want to run the ball a little bit more in this game. They're getting to see a secondary that has been susceptible against the pass. They were better last week, so I think this game's going to be close. I would like to see if AJ Brown plays. I'm gonna put you. You're putting yours depends on Vita Vea. I'm gonna put mine depending on AJ Brown.
What I was actually just about to say is I thought about it. I think that's actually kind of bullshit. I'm just gonna take the Bucks regardless. I'm just gonna take the Bucks
Oh,
regardless.
boo! I really wanted to do depends on AJ
You can
Brown.
keep yours. You can keep yours.
No, I'm not gonna keep yours. If I think
there's too
I
many.
think that'd be a cool.
I forgot that there was injuries on the other side. And honestly, now I've thought about it. There's a better chance of Vita Vea plays than those two, if we're being honest.
That's fair.
So I'm just gonna rock with the Bucks, regardless if Vita Vea plays. Even if he doesn't, I think Saquon will run all over him. But I still think it's an interesting game. So I'll just take the Bucks.
Yeah, it's 4.5 or 2.5.
2.5. I mean, I'm sure it'll probably move. There's so many injuries in this game that this line will move.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
We'll adjust it when the time comes. But
We'll adjust it. I'll go with the Eagles 2.5 right now. Just completely stick with the same thought process I've had all season and not switch it up at all.
There you go.
Been very good for me so far.
Yeah, dominant. But I do want to say Rashad White fantasy owners, it's officially over for us. So we can just pack it up. There's no chance anymore. We're dead. But
should have looked for Bucky Irving.
Yeah, sad. But moving on here to Saints at Falcons. Saints are 10-3 in their last 13 against Atlanta, including 5-1 in their last 6 in Atlanta. Saints are coming off of a tough loss to the Eagles at home, the game we just spoke about. I don't think the Saints are frauds. I just think they kind of came back to earth a little bit, and the Eagles were in a desperate situation there. Saints have been able to run it well early, and the Falcons' biggest defensive weakness is the run. They're not bad against the run, but if you had to pick apart their defense, you'd say they're not phenomenal against the run. Saints should be able to get some success there. The Saints secondary defensively has been dominant all year. I think that's going to give Kirk and the Falcons a lot of trouble in this one. The Falcons have faced 2 bad and 1 good defense so far. They looked good versus that 1 bad defense, and they looked pretty bad against the 2 good defense, they looked good against the 2 bad defense they played. They looked bad against the 1 good defense they played. This game is basically a pick 'em. Atlanta being at home doesn't sway me nearly as much as New Orleans being at home would. I'm back and forth on this one. Like I said, it's basically a pick 'em, but I'm gonna take New Orleans plus 1.5.
Yeah, I'm going back and forth in this one. Very fun game. Battle for the NFC South. I guess it's early in the season to say that, but it's an NFC South battle regardless.
Battle for the NFC South, week 4.
Hey, low key, maybe it is. It could come back to haunt the team later in the season. But Derek Carr was phenomenal in week 1 and week 2. Struggled in week 3 against the Eagles. Kind of surprisingly, only had 142 passing yards. And the Falcons defense is giving up. And in the run game, the Falcons defense is giving up 150 yards per game. Pretty high. I expect Kamara to have a big game this week. He's had a pretty solid season so far. He's looked good. I don't think week 1 and week 2 really. I think it was maybe it was putting too high of a target on how good the Saints team is, but I don't think it was a fluke. I think they're somewhere in the middle there. The Saints secondary is very good, no matter what. That'll be a tough matchup for Kirk Cousins and the Falcons. And the Saints defense also has been great against the run, only giving up 99 yards per game, which is top 10. I can see the Falcons offense struggling in this game, although they have looked better in recent weeks. So I expect the Saints to cover plus 1.5. I think this game will be close. So yeah, I'm gonna go Saints plus 1.5. Kirk Cousins has been looking better though with his guys. I just think this Saints secondary is gonna be able to slow him down, and I think Kamara's gonna have a big game on the ground against the Falcons' rush defense.
You took your first dog, and it was a massive
No.
dog. 1.5 on the
second
road.
Second dog.
Oh, the Rams. Yeah, the Rams. Yeah.
I've taken 2 massive dogs so far.
The Rams should have been a favorite. That's why I don't count them.
Yeah.
But, if the Rams were a favorite in Chicago with all their injuries. But moving on here to Jags at Texans. I just really do not want to talk about the Jags, but there was something I wanted to say when we were talking about the preview, and then I was like, or the recap of Monday Night Football, and then I was like, we've been talking about this shit for way too long, so I'll just save it for the preview later on. But Trevor Lawrence, anyone who knows me knows that I have been a big Trevor Lawrence supporter for a long time. I have been quoted in college saying that he was a top 15 NFL quarterback at that point. I'm not sure that he's a top 15 NFL quarterback right now, and he's been in the league for a while and he's making a shit ton of money. If there was ever a point to give up on Trevor Lawrence, I think this is the moment. I think he is currently, after last night, the lowest he has been in his career. And I think if there was a time to buy his stock, it would be now. At this point, I have had so many chips in the Trevor Lawrence basket over the past 6, 7 years that as much as I want to pull the plug and call it and say, you know what, this is the time to get out. Let me get out before it gets too bad. I can't do it. And I just feel like maybe there's a chance you get a Ben Johnson in there and you can figure it out that way. I'm sounding like Bears fans for a team that isn't even my team and a quarterback that isn't my quarterback. But Doug Peterson, at times he's been good. At times he's been looked at as a clown. We know Urban Meyer's a clown. I'm not going to fully give up on Trevor Lawrence just yet. But their defense went from a unit that was playing pretty well in the first two games to horrible after Monday Night Football. Miami may have been rusty in week one, and the Browns offense is not good, and they get torched by Buffalo in week three. Texans should rebound and have a much easier time offensively with a much less complex defense in Jacksonville. Jags pass rush has not been great at all to start the year. Texans pass rush has been great. I think they're going to be able to fluster Trevor Lawrence early and often in this one. Find it kind of odd. The spread is just 7. If it were me making the line, I think I would make it like Texans minus 85.5. But I'm gonna rock with the Texans minus 7. But I do want to say I'm acknowledging that this could be a trap because how on earth do you watch last night's game? And I know the Texans lost big against the Vikings, but how on earth do you say that a team that passes the way the Texans do is only going to beat the Jags by 7? I don't get that. But
Yeah, this is a battle too of a stoppable force versus a movable object against the spread. Both teams so far in the season are 0-3 against the spread, so something has to give in this one.
Yep.
Jags and T-Law have looked very rough so far this season, obviously 0-3. Their pass defense has been the third worst in the league, giving up 250.2 yards per game. Meanwhile, the Texans' pass defense is towards the top. They've been able to shut down the pass, so the Jags' pass offense that has been struggling doesn't really get an easy matchup here. Their defense is going to have to find a way to slow down CJ Stroud in that passing attack. I don't really see that happening. But the Jags are desperate for a win. They need it. They're an 0-3 team. Their season's basically on the line in this game. They have to win. I just think Houston's kind of a rough matchup for them in that aspect. Houston, in recent years especially, has really owned the Jaguars. They've won 10 of the 12 past games in this division matchup. Their defense has been, yeah, like I said, they're good against the pass. Joe Mixon might be back, which can help add an element to the Texans offense. And they're coming off of a very disappointing performance, so I think they're going to want to dominate in the game. And I know this week you said was Trevor Lawrence maybe low point in his career. I think that happens next week. And then maybe he gets a chance to maybe prove some things, I think. But right now it's not looking good for the Jags. It's not looking good.
Okay, moving on here to Pats at 49ers. This is, I believe, is the biggest spread of the season so far in the NFL. And it's for a team that's coming off 2 losses here with the 49ers. New England has struggled defensively in the pass game, but they've been very reliable stopping the run. Stopping the run is the first step to stopping the San Francisco offense. The Niners defense has been very similar to the Patriots defense. They're giving up some passing yards, but they haven't given up much on the ground. Pat's offense has really stemmed from their run game. They're going to need Jacoby to pass it better to compete in this one. I'm definitely worried about the Pats pass game, but this defense is a lot easier to pass on than the Jets. They might not be able to run it how they want to run it, but if they could find a way to run it early, they definitely could have some success in this game. And I've went back and forth with where I'm going to go on this one. We also do have to say that their running back Christian McCaffrey is seeing a specialist in Germany for his Achilles tendonitis, which is definitely not what you want to hear. We were talking about before this pod whether or not that CMC would be the biggest #1 draft pick bust in fantasy history if he never plays a game. I think he would have to be. But as far as how I look at this game, like I said, I'm worried about the Pats offense being able to pass the ball, but I think the Niners are a defense that you can surprisingly pass it on. And although they've been a good run defense to start the year, not having Hargrave is definitely going to be a problem there. I think they're able to get a run game going here. New England is. and I think this spread is too big. So give me the Pats plus 10 on the road.
Yeah, this is a tough one. Patriots, they've been frisky all season. I'm 0-3 so far on them. I picked them to cover last week against the Jets, and they obviously did not do that. Jacoby Brissett struggled against the Jets defense. The Patriots could come out upset with how that game looked. Maybe Gerard Mayo. We don't really know how good of a coach he is yet. He's only coached 3 games, but he looked great in week 1 and 2. The 49ers team, they need to come out and dominate. They were up by 10 against the Rams late, missing all their top weapons. CMC, Kittle, Debo, those are 3 guys that not having is very, very killer. If Kittle can play, I would like the Niners to cover in this one. Like I said, they were up 10 against the Rams late and kind of just blew that game. I think they're going to come out motivated. Their defense has been solid against the run, which is what the Patriots are going to want to do. I don't really see Jacoby Brissett being able to do too much against the Niners. And ah, man, I'm going to have to pick the favorite again. I hate to see it. I'm going to go 49ers minus 10. But I
And
just think
this will
that
be the week all the favorites win, and you'll go like 85
that's
and 1,
why
and I'll lose all mine trying to
that's
get fancy with it. But
one of us is going to get lucky here.
this is the first time that I've like, although I have, and there's one of these later that I think I might actually kind of be forcing, but there, this is the first week where I've liked a lot of underdogs. I haven't really liked a lot of underdogs, and I've been like, I don't want to force picks, and like I said, I'm definitely forcing some picks here. But regardless, like I can justify picking the Pats plus 10. Like there are reasons.
Yeah.
I'm not just picking them
No,
just
I
because
agree.
it's the biggest. But
I agree. I think it's justifiable. I mean, I did it last week with them and
yeah,
they got smoked. I think it's definitely justifiable the Giants won after how those teams have looked so far
mhm,
this season.
yeah.
It's just I don't know, I'm just
Who
trusting
knows though? There's a lot of time. I'm gonna bet that there's in that game regardless. Like usually there'll be games where it's like, you know what, I'll make my pick on the pot. I'm not gonna actually bet it because I don't really know, and I'm forced to make a pick here, which forces us to lose more games than we win, rather than when I can pick and choose which 10 bets I want for the week and do way better than my 16 for the total
yeah.
week. There's a very good chance that Thursday night game comes up, and I'm like, you know what, Dallas, they got Micah. Like there's a chance, but no, I believe the Giants can and maybe will compete in that game, but neither here nor there. We'll move on to the Commanders at Cardinals. Cliff Kingsbury's return to Arizona. Legend, Arizona Cardinals head coach. Monday Night Football was semi predictable with how bad the Cincinnati defense is. I'm referring to the Monday Night Football performance from the Commanders. I think that was semi predictable. Like we said, we wanted to switch our picks after. Cardinals defense is a lot better than Cincinnati's defense is, and I don't think Daniels sees the same success he saw in that game on Monday Night Football. Washington has been okay, but not great in their run defense. If Arizona can get their run game going, this is a great spot for them. They looked a little bit slow on offense against the Lions, but like I said, the Lions defense is very good, especially in the run game. They're going to have a lot more opening up for them here, especially downfield against this Commanders team, who's going to give up a shit ton of points. The Cardinals should be able to pass all over this Washington secondary. Washington does have some hype right now, but I think Arizona is much better than Cincinnati right now, and I think they get it done at home. Minus 3.5. Give me the Cards.
Yeah, the spread is basically 50-50 almost on total bets overall. Two offenses that have been very good so far this season. The over is pretty high, but I kind of like that. Sixth and seventh in total yards so far between these offenses. Commanders offense hasn't punted in 2 games, so I feel like they have to be due for a couple punts here. But their secondary, like you said, and their defense overall has been very bad. 255.7 yards per game, second most in the NFL so far. Big chance for Kyler Murray to go out and have a big game with Marvin Harrison, Trey McBride and company. They played a very good Lions team close. They could be able to move the ball. They will be able to move the ball very well in this game. They're at home. And as much as I want to pick the Commanders to pick a dog, I just trust this Cardinals team to go out there and kind of give a statement performance and beat a Commanders team that's coming off of a pretty big high. And this Cardinals team's coming off of a close loss. So I'm going to go with the Cardinals. Cardinals minus 3.5.
Okay, moving on here to the where are we at here? Chiefs at Chargers. The Chiefs will be without Derwin, or the Chargers will be without Derwin James in this one. A tough loss as he was playing well. It's
And look who they're playing.
hilarious. Yeah, it's hilarious to see that. Chargers defense, despite playing bad teams, has been pretty good to start the year. The Chargers are going to need to run the ball in this one, as they should every single game. I think they will be able to run the ball to an extent versus Kansas City. This may end up being the Taylor Heineke game for Los Angeles against a questionable Kansas City secondary could be an Andy Dalton situation for them. No Joe Alt, though, will hurt the Chargers badly. Chiefs have won all close games so far, and I am, oh man, this is the most torn I am for the entire week is on this game. I've written both down, but I I don't see Jim Harbaugh getting blown out at home. So I'm gonna take the Chargers +8 very, very reluctantly. I told myself before the year I was just gonna bet the Chiefs spread every game, but they've been 3 straight close games. So
They've been 3 straight close games so far this year. Wins of 7, 1, and 5 so far in the season. So they've yet to cover this in a game so far this year. They have won like 9 games in a row, and again, all those have been very close. They're
and
middle of the
seven really wasn't seven either. Like
yeah.
they were
I mean,
an inch away on seven.
Chiefs have been middle of the pack against the run. This Chargers team is obviously gonna want to run the football. J.K. Dobbins is gonna get the ball a lot. Derwin James gets suspended right before this game. Ironically, he's playing the NFL franchise right now, the Chiefs. They don't want him to hurt anyone on the Chiefs, it seems, give maybe Kelsey a concussion. Who knows? But I mean, if Justin Herbert plays this game, I would 1000% pick the Chargers +8. With him not playing, it does scare me. The spread's literally 50-50 on total bets. I'm gonna rock with you. I like the Chargers +8. I don't see Harbaugh getting blown out in his first game in this rivalry matchup in LA, which I mean, it's not necessarily too much of a home game, but it's not in Kansas City, so that's why I feel like an 8-point spread can be manageable for the Chargers here.
Yeah, I agree, and I'm just I don't know. I'm just torn on this one. Well, we will see how it goes. But moving on here to Brown. Oh no, what was I gonna say? Yes, I remember what I was gonna say now. So with the whole Justin Herbert thing, it's +8. I am assuming that means he's not playing, or at least Vegas doesn't think he's playing.
Yeah.
Because if he does, this line won't be +8. I guarantee you they're not 8-point underdogs with Herbert at home. I guarantee that. So if in the event that I'm taking this assuming it's Heineke. If Herbert plays and this line moves to 5, I'm probably switching to the Chiefs because I don't like the
Yeah.
Chargers at +5.5.
Yeah,
I like
I
him
can
at
do
8.
that. Yeah.
So we'll see. There's a lot of injury uncertainties and some lines that
Yeah,
may be
I mean, it's
moving.
early in the week. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's going to be
So
that.
we will move on here to Browns at Raiders. Browns with maybe a must-win game here. Browns have not been able to block or run for shit this year on offense. Crosby and the Raiders pass rush will give the Browns, I think, a really tough time this whole game. Deshaun's been getting just beat up. I think it will still be Minshew for the Raiders. I think that is the right decision for right now, despite I do think AOC in the long term is a better option. I think right now it's fine to stick with Minshew. He hasn't been horrible. He's comfortable. There's no reason to switch your quarterback just yet. I think that's the right decision at the moment, but we'll see where they go from here. What else did I have? Yeah, I don't know. I'm still worried about Cleveland, but I think they will perform way better offensively than they did last week against the Giants. I don't think we see a similar situation as we saw last week. I think they put up some points in this one. I think this game ends up being very, very close. I feel like the Browns are the better team, but the line having Raiders as favorites after getting blown out by Carolina is confusing to me, and that makes me think that I have to pick them. So I'm going to try to game the line here a little bit and take the Raiders, even though I would probably pick the Browns if they were favorites.
I do think this line will move no matter what. So I think we will have the opportunity to possibly change it if that were to happen.
Well, so I actually kind of misspoke there. I don't mean I like the Browns as favorites more than the underdogs. That doesn't make any sense. But I mean the fact that the Raiders are opened up as favorites makes me think
Yeah.
that somebody knows something I don't. That's what I.
I
That's
mean, the Browns have a lot of injuries to deal with. I just had it here. Yeah. The Browns injury report has Jedrick Wills, Amari Cooper, Jack Conklin, James Hudson, David Njoku, and Myles Garrett all listed as questionable, and Wyatt Teller already listed as out. So, I mean, that's assuming half of those guys play, that helps them. But overall, I mean, if there's no Myles Garrett, if they're still missing Conklin and Wills, they're missing 3 of their starting O linemen, then I don't trust them to really have a chance against Max Crosby. Obviously, these 2 teams are coming off of maybe the two worst losses in week 3 with the Browns losing to Daniel Jones and the Raiders losing to Andy Dalton badly. I feel like the Raiders are coming off of the more disappointing loss to a terrible team. I think Antonio Pierce is going to have this team pissed off. I didn't like what he had said in the post game about there was people who gave up and he had said like there's people on the team who stop playing and those people they'll stop playing those people. It kind of sounded like he's almost calling out Devontae Adams, which I don't like that. I thought him and Adams kind of had a good relationship, but we'll have to see how that plays out. I like them to come out this game hot offensively, make some plays. The issue I have with this game now is that these are again two teams who can't run the ball. If there was one of these teams could run the ball, I would easily pick that team, but neither can. The Browns offensive line has looked worse. Watson's been sacked 16 times so far this season, which is most in the NFL. So I'm gonna go with the Raiders -1 right now, but if the line changes a lot with this injury report, that could change. I mean, Max Crosby's also listed as questionable, so
Yeah, I'm looking at the remaining teams here and how I said that I was gonna have a bottom five for coaches. I'm without including the the first year head coaches because I don't think it's fair to judge them yet. We have probably like what 6 or 7 new head coaches,
yeah. Wow.
something like that. So that cuts us down to like 25
I
to
mean,
pick
but like,
from here.
does Dan Quinn count as a new head coach or?
No, he doesn't, but I still want to give him time, like those guys to see. And as I'm looking, there's so many guys that are on the fringe here of like 4, 5, 6, 7 that I'm actually gonna switch it to a bottom 3. And we did talk about the third one already that I didn't mention. So in no order, my worst 3 non-new coaches in the NFL are gonna be Eberflus, Sirianni, and Doug Peterson. Those are I feel pretty
I
confident in
think
those
I
of those
second. I
3
think I'm confident in seconding that.
because I thought about AP, but then I think like if we look at Sean Payton's stint in Denver and AP's stint in Vegas, it's not that different. And it's
Yeah,
am I gonna have Sean Payton in my bottom 5 coaches? No, I'm
yeah.
not.
That's
I
I
can't
don't know.
ignore the first 15 years of his career.
Yeah, the first 15 years of his career is great, but he also had who's one of the better quarterbacks in NFL history to kind of ride the coattails of.
Yeah,
I mean, phenomenal quarterback. So that is a tough one.
but yeah,
I
that's
mean,
those would be my bottom 3, I guess.
you could throw in maybe like McCarthy in there as well. I don't know. I don't
Yeah,
hate Mike McCarthy. It's just
yeah, I think
I'd say
McCarthy.
he's on the hot seat right now. I think you have to put him on the hot seat.
No, I completely agree. That's why I switched to 3 because I think there's that group of like AP, Sean
Zach Taylor,
Payton, Zach Taylor, Mike McCarthy. Who else to even a certain extent?
Dable.
Dable. Yeah, I mean, I know they've had a good start to the year, but maybe Dennis Allen. Like, there are definitely some options. As like that group is kind of where it gets murky, but I feel pretty good about Peterson, Eberflus, Sirianni as my last 3. And I just I'm happy to get to hate on Sirianni, but moving on
Yeah.
here to Sunday. You picked the Raiders for that one, right? Or did
Yeah.
okay. Moving on to Sunday Night Football. Bills at Ravens. This is a great Sunday Night Football game. Baltimore has been the worst passing defense in the league so far. I think the Bills are going to torch their secondary. Baltimore's run defense has been the best in the league so far, though. That has definitely been part of the reason because they've been up in a couple games and blown leads. Definitely part of the reason of that. But I think this could definitely help limit the Bills' offense. Undoubtedly, the Ravens are more battle tested at this point in the season than the Bills. I spoke about in that rant earlier how I don't think the Bills have really played anybody yet. The games, though, that the Bills have run it well, they look much better in the games that they haven't been able to run the ball. I think this is a game Buffalo could win if they just pass all over all game like they did against Jacksonville at times I mean the entire first half. Despite a bad pass defense, I just don't think Harbaugh gets completely smoked here. Something I don't think his secondary gets completely smoked. Something about a primetime game in Baltimore just hits different to me. And I'm gonna stick on my hate train and go with the Ravens -2.5.
Yeah, this is for me is the hardest game of the week to pick because you said it, the Ravens secondary is very bad. The Bills can pass all over them, but the Ravens rush offense has been so good. I can see them being able to run all over the Bills. They're giving up 118.3 yards per game against the run. But I mean, last week the Ravens ran the ball 45 out of their 60 plays. They dominated time of possession, 247 yards on the ground. They did still almost blow the game late, but they did win it since 2008. Since Harbaugh became the coach of the Ravens, in games they have 200 plus rushing yards. They are 35-5. There's been 40 of those games. I think they're going to try to run the ball a lot. That could play to their advantage. I think this game's going to be close. It's in Baltimore. I almost just want to like pass making a pick on this game. This is one of those.
I'd pass
I
on
got
like almost every game so far if there was an opportunity to.
yeah. I'm trying to think of the last time these two teams played. I feel like the Bills might have won that, but I'm gonna go with the Ravens in this one. Prime time. I think the Bills need this game more
Wow.
than the Bills. I mean, I still think these are two of the top three teams in the AFC. They're two of the top four teams in the AFC. Yeah, two of the top four teams overall in the AFC. So, but I am gonna go with Baltimore. They're at home. Prime time. They need this game more than the Bills do. They're 1-2. They seem to last week. I think they're going to continue with that. So I'll go Ravens -2.5.
If the Bills played a home game next week against the Kansas City Chiefs and the line was Chiefs -2 in Buffalo, which team are you taking?
Against Buffalo, easily Buffalo +2. What?
Okay, I'm just wondering.
Easily, not even a question.
I'm putting my life savings on the Chiefs in that game.
I'm putting my life savings on the Bills.
All right, so I guess we'll see.
One of us is going broke.
When that matchup eventually happens in the playoffs, and the Chiefs, like they do every single year, beat
Well, that
them
game's
in
got to
the
happen
playoffs.
this year. When does that game happen this year?
Oh, they play in the regular season, huh?
They have to. They both won their division, right?
Yeah, yeah, they do have to play at some point.
I
Josh
feel like
Allen,
I remember seeing that game was like a 3 o'clock game, which is ridiculous that game's a 3 o'clock game. But yeah, 3 o'clock game, November 17th.
nice. Okay, I like that. Maybe
Bills
that'll
are
be
Bills are coming off of an electric game against the Colts.
yeah, that'll be a game where Xavier Worthy like lines up wrong.
Chiefs are coming. Yeah.
And they throw
That's
like a touchdown to win the game, and they
yeah.
call it back, and Mahomes is like, "That was the most bullshit play that I've ever seen."
And see, that's the one time like the Chiefs got kind of shafted by the rest, which they didn't. That they just completely went out there and complained about it. That still irks me to this day.
that moment got me so. Even though I don't like the Bills, that moment got me so mad. Like just at Mahomes and the way he acted, but like looking back, like I saw that video the other day, just hilarious.
Yeah.
It's so funny. Like
That's
Josh Allen's like, good game, and he's like, no, it's bullshit, bro.
yeah. That's so fucking bad, bro. That's so fucking
That's the
bad.
worst shit I've ever seen.
That's literally the worst call I've ever seen. Yeah. The one
It's
time they lose to the refs.
it's funny though, because that's like as sports fans, that's how we are. Like if we get one really
Yeah.
bad call in the fourth quarter, I'm 100% saying that's the worst call I've ever seen. Every time.
It's just crazy to me how silent the and this is another thing. I don't know. Did you see the Chiefs fan who posted on Twitter and it was like one of those memes where it's like a crying face and it's like it's got the Chiefs logo. It's like time to go through my weekly 3 hours of hell again.
What do
Talking
you mean?
about the Chiefs.
Like
Like watching
like
Chiefs football. It's like, dude, you have been lost in like 9 games.
Yeah, that's
You
crazy.
won back-to-back Super Bowls. I can't stand that.
Yeah, that's
He's gotta be
hate
trolling.
I
Gotta
hate
be
those fans.
trolling.
You if you are a bottom half team of the league, you can say shit like that.
Yeah.
If you're even a playoff team, that's crazy.
Like a Bengals fan can easily say that right now.
Yeah,
Right now.
because I don't think they're a playoff team. Yeah, like if they were like had a 12-5 year, and like they were sitting at like 5-5 in the middle of the season, it's like okay, they're gonna figure it out. Then it's like all right, chill out.
Yeah.
Like you can't say that about the Chiefs, but to an extent, I guess when you win so much, you probably become so numb to winning that you have to win by like double digits every time.
Yeah.
Like I remember like coming off of the 38-1 Kentucky season, like anytime we would play a team the next year and didn't blow them out, I'd be like, "Fuck this shit, bro!" Like I'm tired of watching this team. They're like 25-4. Like
yeah.
it's I don't know. I feel like you get numb to it, and let's be honest, there's worse things that Chiefs super fans could be doing. Shout out my boy
There's
Chiefs.
definitely worse.
But
They
moving
might
on,
be doing it still. Who knows?
yeah, honestly, just gonna put the wolf mask on. But um, moving on to once again our first of two Monday Night Football games, and I cannot believe that we're doing it again. But it's also a repeat of another Monday Night Football game from last year, Titans at Dolphins. This is going to be one of Thompson, Boyle, or Huntley for Miami. We don't know what we're going to get yet from them. So far, both of these offensives have been dog shit. Tennis, even with Tua, they did not look great. Either shout out to that Jags offense or defense or not, I guess. I don't know. But Tennessee has been great in the pass defense so far, but pretty bad in the run defense. Miami's defense has been about average in both of those categories. I have fully given up on the Titans after last week with Malik Willis. I've fully given up on them. The Titans are just not a serious team. And I would take Miami at home with you at quarterback, Mike, over the Titans. So, I'm
Really?
not no
I
stipulations
wouldn't.
with this one. Thompson, Boyle, Huntley. I'd rather have Boyle or Huntley, but regardless, Dolphins -1, no matter what.
Yeah, I want to pick the underdog in this one just because I feel like I have to. But with that being said, Titans can't the Titans defense has struggled against the run. I kind of feel like the Dolphins are going to go out there and start Tyler Huntley, which could lead them to having a very interesting rushing attack with Huntley and Achan and
I
just
pray they
all the
do that.
weapons. Maybe Mostert's out there. And because of that, I feel like the Dolphins will win this game. I think they have to win this game. They're already starting to fall way too far behind in the division. Will Levis, he's made some terrible plays, pick sixes, underhand tosses, surrender cobras. He's been bad in terms of that. He hasn't been terrible overall. I mean, he's made good plays. It's just the bad has just outweighed the good overall. If he
By
can
a
just
lot.
eliminate some of the bad, he'd be looking a lot better right now on
And
this
do a little
Titans team.
more of the good, maybe too.
Yeah. I mean, he's been doing the good. He just can't do the bad.
There hasn't been
Uh,
enough of the good though this year.
there hasn't been enough of the
Last
good,
year
but
there
there
was.
has been good.
Yeah.
But overall, I just like this Dolphins team to find a way to win. They have to. I think if Huntley starts, they could have an interesting rushing attack that the Titans are unable to stop. So I got Dolphins -1 as well.
This was the game though last year that Levis took over Monday Night Football against the Dolphins in Miami. But moving on here to our final game of the preview, Seahawks at Lions on Monday Night Football. The Lions stumble out of week 3 in Arizona with a win, but a ton of damage. They lose 6 starters in that game versus Arizona. Davenport out for the season with an elbow injury. Derek Barnes out with a knee injury for multiple weeks. Ragnow with a pec injury. He tore his pec partially, which is technically, I guess, just a strain, but he wants to play for Seattle. I hope and expect him to miss the game for Seattle, and they have a bye week, week 5. I think it's very easy to say, you know what, Ragnow, we already have a long week here. Rest up, have the bye week, and we'll see you in week 6. Give him 2.5 or whatever weeks off. Moving on, Ali McNeil starting D tackle shoulder. He's day to day. Sam Laporta with an ankle injury is day to day, and Brian Branch in concussion protocol is also day to day. This adds to Anzalone, who was already hurt with a concussion, to bring the Lions total up to 7 starters down, including 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 defensive starters down after just 3 weeks. You hate to see it. It's really bad. Without Barnes and Anzalone, the Lions are going to need Jack Campbell and Rodrigo to step up big. Luckily for them, Malcolm Rodriguez has been pretty good in the time he's gotten, and they've made sure, even with 3 linebackers above him, they've made sure to give him touches. They make sure to give him snaps. He's been in the game. He's been comfortable. I think him and him and Jack Campbell should be able to do an okay job. And I think Anzalone should come back this week. Not positive. I think he will, though. So that should be the starting 3 for the Lions there at linebacker. The Lions have lost 6 straight games to Seattle. The last 3 games between these two teams has averaged 80 points per game total, which is crazy. Although I could see this game, I know everyone's going to want to bet the over because this game keeps being insane year after year and they keep playing. But I actually think this is one where it could be a decently low scoring game. Seattle has had the best pass defense so far, but they have played all bad teams. Like I said last week, they played the Bucks, the Patriots, and who did they play last week? I'm blanking.
Dolphins.
Dolphins without Tua. So they played 3 bad teams so far. Didn't look impressive really in either. I mean, they looked good in the first half versus Miami, but in the second half they didn't look too special. Seattle's run defense has not been good, though. However, the Lions should pummel them with or without Ragnow on the ground. If Ragnow's not in there, I expect Glasnow to move to center, and then Iosika to move to guard from the bench. He's been solid in the reps he got last year. When the Lions didn't have Ragnow last year, they played decently well without him. I think they will be fine, especially if they only have to miss him for one game and then they get the bye. Very, very lucky with this Ragnow injury, and that's why I want him to sit because they cannot afford to lose him for more games. Seattle is a pass first team, and they're going to have to be that against the Lions, but the Lions defense as a whole has been great to start this year. I think they look much better than they did in years past against the Seahawks. Goff has to have a turnover-free game. I think he does that with the success of the run game. Think we see the Lions run this like 40 times this game. I think the Lions win a gritty game and head to 3-1 into the bye. You need the Lions minus 3.5.
Seahawks pass defense, like you said, has been phenomenal so far this year. But when you're going up against Bo Nix, and I think his first game, Jacoby Brissett, and then a duo of Skylar Thompson and Tim Boyle, I really hope your pass defense does look good between those three guys. But Mike McDonald has his defense playing solid. Offensively, they've been all right as well. Geno Smith's been good, getting the ball to DK Metcalf and JSN. They haven't had Kenneth Walker. I don't know if he'll play in this game or not, but Charbonnet wasn't great in week 2, was pretty good in week 3. I don't really see the Seahawks being able to run the ball against the Lions. That's where their strength kind of is defensively, stopping the run. They're going to have to pass. So it'll be interesting to see if the Lions secondary can hold up against 3 of the elite Seahawks pass catchers that they have right now. Offensively for the Lions, I love the matchup with the rushing. They are top 7 in both rushing yards and passing yards per game. There's only 13 running backs right now in the NFL with over 200 yards. The Lions have 2 of them with Gibbs and Montgomery. The passing game, there's only 14 receivers over 200 yards so far this season, and the Lions have 2 of them with JMO and Amon-Ra. The Lions offense has been good. I think that's going to continue. I think they're finally able to get it done. They haven't beat the Seahawks since 2012. I think they beat them, and I also think they cover 3.5 as well. If Kenneth Walker plays, that could change my mind a little bit. Maybe it changes the line. He does play pretty good football in the state of Michigan, as we've seen before. But right now I'm gonna go with Lions minus 3.5.
Okay, moving on to our best bets here. I believe I went first last week, so you can go first this week.
Oh man, there's really not much I like, to be honest. But I'm gonna go for my first one is Rams plus 2.5 versus the.
You can have +3. It's gonna be +3. It's plus 102 at 2.5. So you can get your +3.
I'll take +3 versus the Bears.
You lose by a field goal trying to take a plus money pick on this.
Yeah. I'll go with the Bears +3. Or the Rams +3 against the
you know what? I'm
Bears.
actually realizing too. On that note, it's the same situation with the Cardinals. Cardinals are gonna end up being -3. So, let that be known.
What did I?
They're 3.5.
I picked
They're 3.5
3.5.
at plus 100.
Oh, yeah. So hopefully that
both
moves
lines
down. That'll
that'll be my next.
hopefully help us. I trust the Rams pass rush to kind of get to the Bears quarterback. Can't really. Offensive line's been very poor for the Bears, so I got the Rams plus 2.5 as my first best bet.
All right, I'm gonna take that Cardinals -3. Like I said, I think they're just poised. I think they are coming off a loss, and the Commanders are coming off a win. So I think a lot of people are gonna pick the Commanders. They looked so good on Monday Night Football, but Cardinals are going to torch this Commanders defense, and they're going to be able to run the ball really, really well. Something that the Bengals couldn't do against this team. They're going to be able to control the narrative. It's not going to be the thing that the Commanders were able to do against the Bengals is they know the Bengals can't run the ball, so they're like, all right, get into a passing competition with us and see what happens. Neither of us are going to be able to control the clock. Let's just see who can have a pass off. Cardinals are going to be able to control the clock in this game. They're going to run the ball better than the Commanders. They're going to probably pass better because the Cardinals defense with Budda Baker has been solid so far, especially in the secondary. They've been great in the run game as well too. I love the Cardinals at -3.
And I'm going to stay on that game. I'm going to go with Cardinals Commanders over 50.5. Like you said, I think it's going to be a high scoring game, although that probably is the highest over under of the week. I think it hits. Commanders haven't punted in 2 games. They'll probably have to punt in this one, but I still think they're going to be able to score a lot. And I think the Cardinals are going to be able to score on the Commander secondary that has been very, very poor. So Cardinals Commanders over 50.5.
Okay, my next one here, I'm going to rock with the Steelers -2 in Indy. I just think the Steelers match up really, really well in this game. It's a game where they're going to be able to enforce their will on the ground. I think we see the Colts run defense come back to earth. I think we see something maybe not as extreme as the Packers game or the Texans game, but I think the Steelers are able to run the ball like crazy. They haven't had a game where they've been able to play a defense that gives up a ton of rushing yards. They finally get one perfectly plays to their styles, and the Colts are going to struggle against this defense for the Steelers. So give me the Steelers -2.
Yeah, and I do want to note though, I guess we didn't talk about, but Najee Harris is questionable, I think, with an elbow injury. So it'll be interesting to see if
I view that as
he,
a plug and play backfield, really.
yeah. For my third best bet here, this is where it gets tough. I had two that I liked, I had three that I liked, but now we're in a tough one. I really
I have
the
one
big
left. I'm
spreads,
hoping you don't pick it.
the big spreads have been really bad for me. Is yours a big spread?
No.
Oh, okay.
Or maybe it is. Maybe it is.
I'm gonna go Jets -7.5. Fine. Nathaniel Hackett, part two, revenge game. Aaron Rodgers is gonna be pissed that they talked about his coach like that. I think the defense is gonna shut down Bo Nix. Broncos are coming off of a win last week. I think they're gonna be a little too high on themselves. I got Jets -7.5.
Yeah, no, that was not my pick. I was a little scared because I did tip my pick like 20 minutes ago, but I said I would have taken them with you a quarterback. I'm taking Miami to beat the Titans.
Oh yeah.
I hate the Titans. I think the Titans are going to become my new Chargers, maybe. But I don't know. I just
Oh yeah, from last year. I remember that. That was
yeah.
fun.
That team though was different because I hated them because I had expectations. I didn't have expectations for the Titans. I just uh I just think they're just a bad team. That's just truly what it comes on to. So they're not going
Hmm.
to be my new Chargers. I will find a new Chargers. Um, Trying to think of who could maybe be a new prospect early for my new Chargers.
Cowboys, Bills.
Uh,
Bills are good, but
yeah, I mean, yeah, I need to find a team that fits
Bengals.
that build. Oh, I know who it is. It's the Browns. It's the Browns.
Oh
The Browns
yeah,
are my new Chargers. The Browns are my new
yeah.
Chargers. I mean, whatever. That's neither here nor there. I'm taking the Finns -1 against the Titans as my last
Three
bet.
favorites for your best
Yeah, I
bets.
know. I went the craziest. I've gone with the underdogs in my total picks, and I end up going with three favorites regardless. But that will about do it for this long episode of the Engage 8 pod. We will be back on Monday to recap all of the games through before Sunday Night Football on week 4. And then we will be back a week from today to recap week 5 in college football, talk about some of the games we missed on week 4 of the NFL, and then preview you for week 5 already of the NFL season. But until then, hit all those links in the description for our Spotify, TikTok, and all that good stuff. And we will see everybody in the next one.